In this video, we are going to look at the classic production possibility frontier comparing guns and butter. When we talk about guns and butter, we are not talking specifically about guns and cubes of butter. Guns represents all military spending, where butter represents all social spending. So let's say that the United States has a couple different production possibility frontiers. Let's say that if they produce nothing but guns, it's going to obviously be at the price of all butter that they could be producing. So let's say that they are maximizing their production of guns if they produce 4,000 units of guns in a month. That means no butter will be produced. Okay. Conversely, if they put all of their resources, that's their land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, technology, all of their resources towards the production of butter, they can produce 8,000 units of butter. Okay? So let's look at a couple different points. If they come down 1,000 units of guns, they'll now be able to dedicate some of those resources from guns to the production of butter, and they can produce 4,200 units of butter. If they give up another 1,000 units of guns, they would be able to produce 6,400 units of butter. If they give up that one additional 1,000 units of guns, they would be able to produce 7,600 units of butter. Okay, so we'll call this point A, point B, point C, point D, and point E of possible production that this nation could choose from. There are obviously a number of points that I'm not going to list, but let's start with those and create the production possibility frontier. Okay, so if we put guns on our y-axis and butter on our x-axis, and we connect the points, we're able to see this is the nation's production possibility frontier. As we learned from our last video, anything that's in the interior of the production possibility frontier is a point of inefficiency, meaning that we have unused resources. Anything beyond is something that we can't get to with our current resources. So these are points of non-feasibility and inefficiency. Anything that lies on the curve is productively efficient. We are using all of our resources to the best of their ability. Okay, so now let's say, well, what happens when we move along our production possibility frontier? Let me just throw the points up. So we have A, B, C, D, and E. These are the points that correspond with these numbers. Okay, now let's assume that I actually had a ruler, which I did not. I mean, I did to make the lines, but no graphing paper. And let's assume that all of these are equal changes in our y-axis. They all represent 1,000 units of guns, okay? Look at what's happening to the units of butter. When we give up our first 1,000 units of guns, we're able to get back a very, very large amount of butter. We're able to get, for that first unit of guns that we give up, we're able to get 4,200 units of butter. If we give up another 1,000 units of guns, so basically we can come over here and say that the distance between these two numbers would give us the trade-off of producing more guns versus more butter. So let me grab a lighter color so I don't really mess this up. But obviously between 0 and 4,200, we'll see that this would be a 4,200 unit gain if we come down on our producing butter. And down here, if we're producing nothing but butter and we come and start producing some units of guns, we would increase 1,000 units, even though we would only be giving up 400 units of butter. So let's follow this all the way down, looking at it from the guns aspect. So we give up our first 1,000 units of guns and we get 4,200 units of butter. We get up another 1,000 units of guns, but this time we don't get quite as many units of butter back. Our decreasing or our increasing opportunity cost has already set in. We're getting less and less back for giving up the same amount. Okay, so this doesn't make sense that it's decreasing or that it's increasing when the numbers that I'm going to show you are decreasing, but in a moment you'll be able to see what's going on. So down here, this last tiny bit that we're giving up, we're going to get 400 units. And that's the last little bit of gain. That's all we're getting back. Okay, so as we move along the production possibility frontier, the rise is staying the same, but the run as we come to these extreme areas is getting more and more and more. That means that the opportunity cost is getting more expensive. So if we were to move along our production possibility frontier, let's say from point A to point B or from B to C, this is a trade-off. This is not economic growth. It is simply moving from one possibility to another possibility on the same frontier. Okay? We do use the same graph to model growth. Let's say that we found out that we were able to increase the size of our labor force. We were able to add 3 million people to our labor force. Now we would see that the entire production possibility frontier would shift to the right. We would be able to produce more guns, we would be able to produce more butter, and we could even produce more of both goods at the same time. Okay? So that's if we have what's called equal growth. Now, what if instead of having equal growth, we found out there's a new technology that's going to help us milk the cows faster, more efficiently, and we aren't going to need as many hands producing butter? Well, then we would be able to see that we would be able to have some sort of skewed growth where we would be able to increase our butter production by a significant amount, and we can still squeak out some more guns because we're able to free up some resources from butter in order to produce more guns. So moving along the curve is very different than the shift of the curve. We shift the curve out to the right when we are able to have some sort of economic growth. The curve can also shift back into the left, and we can see the entire curve come back in when we have any sort of economic setback or any sort of recession where we are losing workers, having higher unemployment, having sick workers. If we had something that like the plague that came and caused our production possibility frontier to shift to the left. So anytime that we have an increase, it's going to be a shift to the right. Anytime that we have a decrease, it's going to be a shift to the left of the production possibility frontier. Okay, after this video, let's go ahead and start looking at gains from trade and how we can use the production possibility frontier to look at opportunity cost and how we can find comparative advantages and absolute advantages.